Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. My name is Christopher Ram. Thank you for joining me for the next hour as we discuss political issues in our country. Sounds like that's almost inevitable and inescapable. Politics runs through the daily lives in our country. My guest this evening is Mr. Gerald Perreira. He's chairman of the Organization for the Victory of the People, one of the smaller political parties. He's been a regular on this program. Gerald's politics would be, to put it mildly, left of center, Gerald?
Left.
Left, not left. Just left.
Yes, left.
Maybe that's a good point for us to start. A number of new political parties have begun to surface.
Yeah.
In many ways, they do seem quite serious about their intentions. What distinguishes any of these parties from any of the other parties that they're trying to displace?
Good question. Very important. First of all, if you examine the political landscape carefully, whether it's the major parties, the People's National Congress Reform or the PPP, and all the parties, including the new ones, they're ideologically, they're all to the right, from the center right to the right. All of the parties on the political landscape have accepted the so-called Washington Consensus, or the neoliberal model of economics, the neoliberal economics. It was imposed on this country during Mr. Hoyt's presidency, and from Mr. Hoyt through to Dr. Jagan, and right through to the former President Jagdeo Ramatar and the current President Granger. They're all running with this neoliberal policies, right? And no one is challenging it, no one is questioning it, it's taken as a given. So when you examine all of them, none, to use the traditional categories of left and right, they're all to the right, from the center right to the right. There is no political party today that occupies what is called the left. I think that the PPP is as neoliberal in its policies as this government and all the parties. So even the small parties, they're all to the center right or to the right.
Well, it's in the case of the coalition, the governing coalition is made up of a number of parties. You have the more populist type. You have the one-man band. You've got the WPA, which has an interesting and very positive history. It's always been left. I think its leaders were considered Marxists.
Yeah.
How would you define the WPA at this stage, if it's at all capable of any independent definition, given that it's part of this arrangement, APNU plus AFC? APNU was brought in under Carl Greenidge, I think it was.
Correct.
Brought in the
he was finance minister.
Economic recovery program, and the AFC, that
a program at the ERP that the WPA wants referred to
empty
as
right
empty
spot.
right spot.
That's correct. Well, WPA is hard to recognize these days.
Yeah.
Yes. So how would you describe the WPA in this context?
I think, first of all, before I get into that about the WPA,
I mean, just take it. Working People's Alliance. Working people.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the name. I think the name right now, given their policies, is a contradiction. I think, Chris, what happened was, remember with the collapse of the Eastern Bloc and Soviet-style communism, they were quite a number of things happened. There were those who, you remember Dr. Trevor Monroe Jamaica, who
Yeah,
founded the Workers'
I remember-
Party.
I
Well, he
remember
made a
very-
complete switch. He moved from Marxism, Leninism back to liberal democratic. Good.
I know.
Then there were those who, in the like in the Caribbean, we had people in the tradition of C.L.R. James and so, who said that what existed in the Soviet Union had nothing to do with socialism. You know that tradition, right? There was always a democratic socialist tradition that was opposed to Soviet-style communism and so. So what happened was there were those who critiqued Soviet-style communism from from democratic socialist position, and some abandoned that the socialist project altogether. Right? They lost. Clive Thomas is known as a dependency in Marxist economics and sort of developmental economics. We talk about the dependency theorists, and he has been placed in that camp. They're strongly influenced by Marxism, or some people call them neo-Marxists. But the Clive Thomas that wrote for Monthly Review Press, that publishes works and so, and the Clive Thomas that spoke about the poor and the powerless, is part of a government that champions neoliberal economics. And I've seen the closure of the estates and other things and all of that is taking place right under Thomas' watch. And I can't see how you could be a party of the working people and you're not advancing or a position as such. You're taking positions that are not in the interest of the masses, the working people of this country.
Well, Clive Thomas, who was regarded as a leading economist in
Exactly.
sugar.
Yeah, within the so-called the third world or the global
That's
south.
correct. He has participated in the destruction of the sugar industry.
Correct.
How do you're a politician. How do you explain these radical and violent transformations among politicians?
I think there's a number of factors, but one, if you look in Guyana, I think there's a tendency for some of our politicians to buy into what we call this geopolitical fatalism. You remember after Grenada, after what happened in Grenada, and so, nobody wants to upset the empire, Uncle Sam, so we play along to the tune, so whatever they tell us, they just want to, they're not interested in a transformational politics anymore. It's just about managing what exists. And they're happy to go along with that, to see it's reduced to a competition among power elites to see who could manage this dysfunctional system, right? The existing political arrangement. I don't think there is any commitment to any ideology. There is no ideological position or drive.
But was there? We know now. We know what Trevor Monroe has become.
Yes. Totally to the right.
Bobby Clark guy, I think.
No, Bobby's
Clark.
still there.
He's still there.
Yeah, still there.
Is he still there?
Yeah, yep. He was in Cuba recently. He's
Okay.
still, you can't get Bobby from that People's Empowerment Party.
Yes.
But they give their support to the present Labour Party.
I remember Bobby Clark visiting me. I was living on the golf course in Grenada.
Yeah.
And Grenada and Bobby Clark said,
Well, you would
looked over the golf course. He said, you know how many cows we can put here to graze?
Yeah. That's the type of
He's
yeah. Rather than having the land for golf. Yeah, Bobby's like that.
But Clive Thomas, Roop Narayan.
Yeah.
There must be
Yeah.
there must be an explanation. What's that explanation? Look, you've got. I mean,
Yeah.
even a trade unionist. You've got the bauxite company, the gold company, Troy, sending home 300 workers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the trade union says nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. Foreign capital is running riot in this country. The trade union movement is doing nothing. I'm not listening to the voices of the trade union leaders. Where's the trade union militancy? It's absent. But the thing about it, you ask about why is this transformation? I believe, Chris, if your politics, I truly believe this, if your politics is not spiritually infused, right? And this is the difference where we come from. If your politics is not spiritually infused, if you don't realize that there's a what you call a metaphysical dimension to human existence and society, then, and you have to realize also that this struggle, if you're fighting for justice, you're fighting for social transformation, this is a battle that is a big battle. We are part of something larger than ourselves. And as the Bible says and the Holy Book said, man, be true to thyself. I honestly believe that if you are committed to something and you understand it, then you go all the way down fighting. I've been active. I've been a socialist.
Do you need to be metaphysical about that, or just be honest to thine own self, be true?
Well, your morality must be grounded in something deep. It must be grounded in something deep. You know, I see what you're raising, but I believe that, for example, I don't like the term politician applied to me. I'm a revolutionary. I am not fighting.
A revolutionary politician.
That's
okay.
right, a revolutionary politician. I'm not fighting for office. OVP is not a mere electoral outfit. That's one avenue or area of struggle, right? We are fighting to achieve human dignity in this country, economic justice, and true independence. True independence, going beyond this fallacious flag and anthem independence that we achieved in '66. You look at this, we're witnessing this process of recolonization right before our eyes.
Now, you're saying the politicians don't have that metaphysical grounding, and that's another WPA word, or a Walter Rodney word. The WPA still uses it. What it is that causes people, the ordinary folks, for voting for parties that they know have operated against their interests for decades and have shown no remorse, no intention of changing. What is it? So we talk about the politician, but the people must be just as bad. Without the people, the politicians aren't much.
I agree with you, but there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, take for example, you remember this, we know the story. I mean, look at what Jesus did, right? He healed the sick and everything he did and all. And yet when you had to choose between him, right, and Barabbas, who they went for. The point I'm getting at is this. Sometimes where the people, and I'm not going to romanticize the people. I'm talking about the truth, and I'm not into popularity contest here. I'm going to talk the truth. I'd rather tell you the truth and get 10 votes than lie to the people and get 1,000 votes. We're not into that. The point is that the ruling elites, the political elites, have always tried to convince the people that their interests, for example, their class interests, and the people's interests, there's a convergence, that they're together.
But sure,
and people buy into that.
People see it. People see it.
People buy into that, and then you have, yes, that's true. And then you also have our racially polarized societies where you can tell people, well, look what's going on here, and yet people will still vote for a particular party based on the ethnic support and the leadership of the party, and so. And the issues that we have to address that is confronting us, right? We just let me give you an example of something. There's a thing going around in this country right now. It's there, I read about it and so, right? That some time ago, the British were in talks with certain people of a particular ethnic group in this country and the British government, good, about making this country, good, an Indian colony or something along that line.
Yeah.
Now, you know about that?
Yes.
Good. My position is I don't focus on things that, given today's context, there are more important things. The point is it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
It did not happen. Yes.
It did not happen. Right? So there are people who are pushing that agenda. They have programs and they're pushing that. And the white man is recolonizing our country right in front of us. And nobody's saying anything. Where are the voices?
Why would you say the white man is recolonizing?
When I say the white, you know what I'm talking about. This country here, you look at the level of interference in the domestic, the national affairs of this country by the so-called ABC countries.
But no, listen,
Right?
I take that point.
And the foreign corporations.
I take that point. But listen, Raphael Trotman is the one who we keep beating around the bush. What is Raphael Trotman doing in government? That man should hide himself. That man he is the one. I wouldn't blame anybody if you get. I mean, yes.
Yeah, right.
It's like taking a sweetie from a child.
Yes.
But Trotman gave this country away.
Yeah.
And yet, this man walks around the place with all the visage of this honest, decent man.
Yeah.
And nobody draws attention to this thing.
But you're right. You remember I said on one of your programs right here, and I said it openly. I said that they're afraid of white people, and somebody told me they're not just afraid, they're in love with them. This is what is going on. We cannot, whether you like Burnham politics or not. Burnham, nobody could have. The way they're rioting, the way they're running things and carrying on, they couldn't do that with Burnham. Burnham would not have tolerated that. Under Burnham that the pittance, this thing that we got for the aisle, with the arrangement with the percentage, that could not have happened. Couldn't happen.
Burnham would have said, I'll pay you $1. Burnham bought Bookers for $1.
For $1.
The mighty Bookers.
Yes, $1.
And for those of us of a certain generation, BG meant Bookers Guyana.
That's right.
Now, we know that the first oil is coming. Do you think Guyana is ready?
No. I'm listening to statements from people like Dr. Mark Bino. I'm listening to a number of people and when you listen to them, even they are acknowledging that they don't know much about it, and they're depending on Guyanese in the diaspora and all these consultants. And look at what happened. Look at it in relation to this. Look at I think it's Mr. Paul from Trinidad, who drafted Anthony Paul, that local content in favor of Guyana, and then the government took it and handed it to a white consultant in Britain who looked at it and struck out everything that was in favor of the local content policy. Isn't that ridiculous?
You know what is the irony of this thing?
Huh?
You bringing a foreigner.
Yes.
To tell you what your local content should be. At least let's get that part of it. But
well, it shows us right, about this whole thing about decolonization and what the fight for true independence is about. Because imagine after so many years of independence or Republican status, look at who we are looking to for assistance and direction.
Well, it's funny. We keep asking the oil companies to introduce local content policies. We have in the Petroleum Act and the petroleum regulations that they must have local content arrangements in relation to prospecting and production licenses that are satisfactory to the government, and the government abandoned that clause. They abandoned it. The Granger administration abandoned it.
It's unpatriotic. It's a standard. It's no nationalist. I've said it. No nationalist, no patriot can condone that or allow that.
And I have had to look at the third draft. I think it's the May 2019 draft of the local content policy. It's not even complete. It has a number.
I haven't seen it.
It has a number of places where it says TBD, to be done, or to be checked, TBC, to be checked. I mean, what kind of amateurishness is this?
It's irresponsible, and
now
it's a giveaway of the nation's patrimony to foreign capital for nothing.
We were told that Forsall will be in March. and Dr. Mark Bino was saying, "Oh, we're going to take our lift at such and such a time." Now the oil companies, and bless them, have said that we will be ready sometime in early December.
Yeah.
I had actually heard from a source that it would have been November.
Yeah.
But now we are going to get 14 barrels of oil out of every 100 produced, and we don't have a place, any arrangement in place to take it, to sell it,
Well, it's getting
or
back
to
to what you
refine.
said. We are not ready. Were we ready? Not ready.
And what baffles me is that the government does not seem to know that it does not know, and that's a frightening possibility.
Yeah.
But
But you heard the finance minister recently, Vincent Jordan. He said that Guyana is going to become the Dubai, like Dubai. Now, when you, a finance minister, makes such a statement, you know, it's utter nonsense he's talking. How could Guyana? First of all, you know anything about the economy of Dubai?
Well,
know Dubai.
He has been going to meetings. He seems to like the Middle East.
But
He's been going there a lot.
in Dubai, the banks don't take interest.
Yeah.
There's no interest riba. Is interest free because they apply aspects of Islam, what they call Islamic economics.
What he does not understand is that the petroleum agreements available in the Middle East so very different from what we have.
Correct.
It's elementary, but
Correct.
now AFC,
Yeah.
the party of deadlines.
Yeah.
It
Classical
has,
middle class party.
It has set so many deadlines.
Yeah.
And now it's like you know where you cry wolf,
Yeah.
or you threaten,
Yeah.
and then the person bite, and you threaten again.
Yeah.
What do you think about what is taking place between the AFC
Yeah.
and the APNU in connection with the Commingsburg Accord?
Well, I say more well, APNU, but it's more PNCR and AFC. You know, if the AFC, if the AFC is to come run in the elections in 2020, if they only go by themselves in 2020, they won't get one seat. They won't get one seat. They're just piggybacking on the PNCR and APNU. And the PNCR is right to put them in such a position. In other words, as Green just said, he should have the preference in terms of picking the prime ministerial candidate, his running mate, the prime ministerial candidate.
Is this Burnham de Gar all over again?
I'm not sure.
1964.
No, I don't think
You
so.
remember?
Yeah, I know.
Well, what happened then?
Yeah.
Burnham entered into coalition with the United Force.
Yeah.
And then he started by taking
Yeah.
Randolph Cheeks.
Yeah,
he
Randolph
started
Cheeks
stealing.
and Phelan. Not Phelan Singh. Hello. He took
That-
Randolph Cheeks and Rupert Taylor, I think.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Are we seeing a replay of that?
I think it's different. What Burnham did at the time was something very strategic in the interest of, because Burnham was socialist oriented, and Burnham took, given the circumstances then and at that period, Burnham took certain decisions that he entered into the alliance with United Force. But you got to remember that even before Burnham went with the UF, you remember Burnham brought in John Carter, the United Democratic Party, and all those things and so. And they also made their contribution.
But the UDP
yeah
became
you needed them
got
to middle
integrated.
Class. Yeah. Well, the AFC is a country. The AFC is like that.
Does the AFC know what it is?
I don't think so. What's the AFC's ideological position? I've never seen anything that is clearly defined in terms of the principles and so.
They call themselves liberal Democrats.
Liberal Democrats, yeah.
Which is always a slightly elusive
correct
concept to pin down.
Yeah. It is.
I
It is.
differ from you.
Mhm.
I don't believe
Mhm.
the AFC is dead.
You don't believe so?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I believe if the
Why?
I still believe the AFC. There is something about the AFC and the
Mhm.
third force.
Mhm.
I believe if the AFC were to say, look, we made some mistakes. We had said we were not going to coalesce with either of the two major parties.
Yeah.
We ended up doing it. Now we are sorry. Don't you think the electorate in Guyana, we Guyanese ordinary people, if someone said sorry and truly meant it, that we're prepared to forgive?
But there are sections of the electorate who might accept that, and then there are others who would not go along with it. They would just say, well, too late.
What is too
Because-
late if they still bring the right message?
Uh-huh.
If they can show, what, we are still.
But
Given the
But check out what they've-
OVP and all the political parties,
Uh-huh.
the AFC still has
But they
something
got-
in the psyche of Guyanese
Uh,
that it's a third party.
First of all, look at this. Ramjatan, Mr. Ramjatan. Mr. Ramjatan has made Clement Rohi, right? Look like a very... Clement Rohi performed far better than him. And I'm no fan of Mr. Rohi or any other PPP, but I must say that to me, I'm expressing a personal opinion, and it's not necessarily the position of I
Not
think that
necessarily position of what?
of the OVP,
Okay.
right? This
But
is
I
just-
thought you spoke for the OVP.
Yeah, but OVP, we have a directorate and so, but tonight I'm saying this as in my personal capacity. I think that Ramjatan is the worst Minister of Home Affairs this country in the political history of this country. I think so.
I don't think many people will disagree with you.
I think so.
We have never had
Yeah. You check it.
one single
Yeah.
prison destruction
Yeah.
like we had and
Yeah.
Ramjatan didn't have it
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
He had it twice.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
is, the thing about Mr. Ramjatan, at an individual level,
Yeah.
he's such an approachable type of
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
You can smoke a cigarette with him.
Yeah, I don't doubt
You
that.
can drink
I
a
know,
beer.
I don't doubt that. Yeah.
But he's,
Yeah.
I think many people will agree with you.
Mhm.
He's absolutely
Yeah.
hopeless as a minister.
Yeah. The other thing too with the AFC and this concept of the third force, the third party and the third force. You keep hearing but third force, and I think you will agree with this. Originally, the concept of the third force was meant more to be a third position.
Mm-hmm.
Parties that will take a third position that were neither following the liberal democratic tradition or neoliberal economics. On one hand, they rejected that, and on the other hand, they rejected Soviet-style command economies,
Yes.
right? And they took a third position, which like later Tony Blair and them tried to appropriate
The
and
third
call
way.
the third way.
Yeah.
The third force ought to be a third way that will reject neoliberal economics, market fundamentalism, and state absolutism. That's the third force. So you can have about 15 parties on the landscape, right? That is not what constitute
And each
the
of them
concept.
could say that-
Yes, once they adhere to a particular, that's what.
That's one model of the third force. The
Well-
other model is the institutional. That there's, in other words, there's a third.
Like the liberal Democrats in
yes,
Britain and so.
and the third force is
Mhm.
as we have known it to be in Guyana. And I accept what you're saying about the third way.
Yeah.
The third force was in fact the alternative. It
Yes.
saw number one,
Yeah.
the two
Correct. That's right.
juggernauts. in the
Yeah,
place.
that's right. That's right. But the other thing too, you've noticed that. Have you noticed that the havoc that neoliberal economics have
Across the world.
across the world, and look in in the former Eastern Bloc countries and so, in the former GDR and right across Europe now, you see the rise of the far right.
Yes.
With populist policies and so. And if you read their manifestos, if you read their principles, they have rejected many of them are saying we don't want, for example, they want to maintain their culture. They want Coca-Cola and hamburger, Americans thing. They are, and they've made tremendous electoral gains.
Yes.
They rejected Soviet-style communism, and they're saying, look, the market is wreaking havoc. This concept of the free market, you know, it's just widening the gap between the have and have that. And they today, they're playing, they're power brokers. They're in the middle now. They're gaining more, as opposed to the traditional conservative parties and the social democrats.
Well, let me ask you this, Gerald, because I don't know whether you mentioned that as a supportively or you mention it as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But surely those parties are racist.
Yeah.
They're xenophobic. They're
Correct.
jingoistic.
Yep, they're all that.
And quite frankly, they pursue the kind of politics of Hitler.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
Nazism.
Yeah, yeah. Neo-Nazi.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that even that you bringing it on the table
Yeah.
is not saying that you support those people.
No, we can't support
Because
them.
I mean, look,
No, but it's
Bannon, who
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Trump's strategist.
He just founded a new international.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Bringing together far-right neo-Nazi parties.
And he has said that that is his mission.
Yeah.
He's been rejected in the United States.
Yeah.
If you remember it. Breitbart, he got kicked out of his
Breitbart,
own
yeah.
organization.
New organization.
And the man is now the architect and the intellectual author
yeah.
of the far right.
Of the
So
far right, yeah.
he replacing Le Pen. He's got
Yep.
he's close with
He's even active.
Nigel Farage.
He's active with some of the groups involved in destabilizing the Evo Morales government in Bolivia. Yeah. No, we're not. But I'm just saying that they see themselves as a third force, right? Challenging the traditional conservative parties and the social democrats.
You don't. Let's get back to to close on
Yes.
this particular issue. You don't see any future for the AFC.
No. I think if the AFC, I honestly believe if the AFC is to go into the 2020 elections next year, March of next year, I don't think they can get a seat. I don't think they'll get a seat. And I think the PNCR leadership, the APNO leadership is aware of that. And would call their bluff. So they can say that Dominic Gaskin can say that they're battle ready and ready to go by themselves. They can.
But do you take Dominic seriously?
No, I don't pay attention to them. Really, I don't pay attention to them. I think there's more important things to... You see, someone who is involved in politics must study politics. You have to read history, you got to study politics. Politics is not the thing a businessman wake up one morning and said, I am going to run to be the... You know this, Chris, I am going to run. That's why we can have this type of discourse, this discussion. You don't wake up one morning and say, because I, the owner of such and such a place, I want to run to be the president and all that. You got to be in struggle. You got to understand. You got to study. You got to understand the history of this country, Caribbean history, the way global forces operate, what's happening at the global level. Guyana doesn't exist by itself as an island away from everybody else.
But at the superficial level,
Global things impact on this country.
That's correct. In fact, but in practice, at a very superficial level, politicians talk all kind of nonsense. I mean, when you look at some of our leading government figures, you wonder, it's pathetic.
Well, with all when you listen to, say what you want, you listen to Burnham, and you listen to people like Dr. Jagan, and those people, when you can't say, even if you disagree with them, you had political and ideological differences with them, at least when they opened their mouth to speak this, they were informed. There was substance. But Dr. Jagan was a reader. He studied. The same, Burnham was a reader. Burnham was a man always reading. People like Rashley Jackson, those people, you know it. These guys, the present crop, they don't read any book. They don't even read the parliamentary.
Did you say present crop or present crap?
Crop.
You mentioned just now, and I hope you didn't mean this disparagingly.
Yeah.
You said people who own things can feel. are you suggesting that Change Guyana does not have the metal, the political underpinning, the ideological conviction to be a real political
No,
party?
they can't. I'll tell you.
Why?
Because, as I pointed out earlier, they're all pro-business. Doesn't mean that we are anti-business. I'm saying that they see the private sector, they buy into this dogma that the private sector going to be the engine of growth and to kickstart the economy, as what they say, to ignite the economy. That's the term they use, to ignite the economy. We have seen that, and you know this. Wherever you can't, we believe the state. You must have the state. We need a developmental state with state-driven policies. That doesn't mean that the state owns and control everything. That's not. But the state must give direction. They Change Guyana Party. If you look at what their program, some of the things they meant, it's no different to it's back to square one. The neoliberal economics. It's what I said. They've all accepted a particular body of knowledge, a particular economic model, and they're running with that. Nobody's challenging that. Nobody's challenging it today. The only person I've seen that have written anything hitting neoliberal economics must be Ravi Dev. And then lately I noticed 1 and 2, but you've not seen political commentators and many hitting this neoliberal model.
Would you say,
I mean, you see Kissoon now and then speaks about, Kissoon said that this government and the others are viciously, they're grounded in pursuing neoliberal economics that have widening the gap here between the have and nots and creating more poverty.
Well,
and that's what it's about.
The pronouncements,
because it's a project of domination and to transfer wealth into the hands of a few.
The politics of the Change Guyana, as they've announced it so far, is heavily private sector.
Yeah.
It's to reduce taxes, to give incentives, and I always wonder who pays for these incentives.
Correct.
So you give incentives to the business community so that they could create employment for the employees to pay taxes for you to give more incentives.
Yeah.
That's a vicious circle.
That's right. You're going right or wrong. It is. And it is a vicious circle.
Is Guyana, and we mentioned Trevor Monroe from Jamaica. I mean, you couldn't get a much more rabid Marxist than Trevor Monroe.
Correct.
Grenada was his mecca.
Yeah. But they looked him he was like the ideological mentor guru for them.
Well, Grenada was a mecca. I mean, I remember the first place I met Walter Rodney was in Grenada. Clive Thomas, Clement Curtin, Eddie Joe, Paul
Clement
Cowling,
Curtin.
Don Rojas, you mentioned, Bernard Le Corbinet, a whole group. So, what is the future? You say the PPP is still a Marxist party, but its policies are all pro-business. It doesn't seem to care that you are widening the gap between the poor, the have and the have not. You don't have enough attention being paid to the social services, health, education, housing. Who is going to speak in these elections? Who is going to speak for the poor people?
All right, before I answer that. First of all, the PPP, I don't think the PPP, I'm not a Marxist, but of course, Marxism as a tool, Marxism has made a tremendous contribution to critiquing capitalism and as a very vital, in this valuable tool in the social sciences, and but with all due respect, I don't think the PPP is Marxist. Maybe at that particular time, not now.
What would you say they are now?
I think the PPP I think the PPP is contented to just go along with the PPP's policies are neoliberal. That's what you've seen they're doing,
And
they
the,
go
and
along
the
with it.
APNU?
Same thing. Same thing.
Change Guyana?
Same. All of them. I said it earlier. All of them have accepted neoliberal economics. You know what we need in this country? Well, of course, there's a role for the private sector. You could never be we're not anti-private sector, but you need a state. We need state-driven policies in this country. We need this country here, like a lot in the Caribbean. You look at Jamaica, you look at Barbados, you look at Trinidad. After so many years of independence, look at Nigeria. Look at Nigeria, saw it recently in the newspapers, with all, after 60 years of oil production, Nigeria has tremendous poverty. The political and the business elites have benefited from the oil wealth. You go to places like Warri State in Nigeria, I went there, and you see the people, you see where they launched that armed insurrection. You remember when they used to it? Because the people saw the oil wealth going out, and it was not coming back into their communities. Good? And
Go on.
yeah, so we need that. We need to dismantle this arrangement, the authoritarian state. That we need to. There's certain things that must be done. We have to complete this national liberation struggle. We have to complete it.
But it's okay to say we're going through.
Yeah.
And it's becoming like the alphabet soup now. The
Yeah.
number of parties.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's not going to be another one in another day or two.
Well, I told you about some other one, the People's
Yeah.
Republic something. Mhm.
But so you have Liberty and Justice
That's Schumann's
Schuman.
Liberty and Justice,
Justice Party.
Mhm.
Where would you put them on the ideological spectrum?
I'll put them to the center, right? I haven't seen anything left to this. I'll get to that. I'm not seeing any one of them to the center left, much less to the left.
Where would you put the INOG?
I'll put them more to the center right.
But you have two of the leading ideological thinkers would be Henry Jeffrey and Ralph Ramgaran. I don't think you can call them center right.
Well, the thing about it is, if you look at the evolution of Henry Jeffrey, Henry Jeffrey started off being Marxist. I don't think he was ever happy with being labeled a Marxist-Leninist. I know that from long. But when I read him, and so I'm seeing more sort of argument for the liberal democratic tradition. I'm seeing that. I don't even see a social democratic position. I don't see a social democratic position, because if you read the programs of the Social Democratic Party of Germany, the Australia Labour Party, New Zealand Labour Party, and all of that, you will see that they are to the centre left. Even the Barbados Labour Party is 10,000 times more radical than the PPP.
Yes.
No, you know this. Mia Motley, listen to Mia Motley. Listen to the Prime Minister Gaston Brown. Antigua Labour Party.
They recognize, for example, the role of Labour.
Yeah, that's right. They recognize the role of Labour.
But-
They're in the
but-
centre left. We don't have that here.
But here now, our Labour people don't recognize.
No, they don't.
Our Labour people are
No.
sitting on.
No.
What are they doing for Labour?
The unions here, the unions in this country are absolutely useless. You see what Russell gets away with. Look at what Troy Resources is getting away with. And they do anything and they just talk about... You need... What happened to the days of mass protests and workers coming out to demonstrate, and others coming marching, whether it's from Linden or going up to joining workers, sugar workers or bauxite workers, joining others in solidarity, or joining the workers in the mining industry.
Last week I went to an activity.
Yeah.
It was on climate change and, well, the destruction of our...
That was at
at Moray House.
Yeah.
And I was most surprised at one of the youngsters. It was for youths, and that's an extremely good thing. And she said, well, we can't be protesting because if we're protesting, they're going to say we're political. why
Yeah.
why do young people think
Yeah,
that if you protest, you're protesting against the government?
correct. It's
Greta,
absurd.
Greta Thunberg
Yeah.
is not.
Yeah.
She went took her Friday out
Yeah.
with a picket.
Yeah,
You don't protest against a government. You protest for something.
something. That's right.
I was most
Yep.
astounded.
Yeah, that's quite true.
And you wonder if
Yep.
that is the kind of mentality that is going to save this country. Because
And that's at the university too.
and
That's at the university.
And you know, some scientific results tests have just come in
Yeah.
that we are heading for serious global catastrophe.
We have to reduce it by a certain percentage within
Well,
a number of years.
My friend, we're
It-
not doing it. In
it's-
fact, we're doubling the rate. Look, we don't want to
When
say
those
this.
things start to burn outside there, you know,
Well, one hears that we wouldn't be using flame.
Mhm.
That's what we hear.
okay.
But the very fact that you're making fossil fuel extraction the centerpiece,
Which contradicts the whole thing about the green economy.
sometimes you wonder if
Right.
Granger knows which direction you're
How
really going
could
in.
you speak about pursuing a green economy and then you're going down the path of fossil fuel? How could you do that? Because, as I said earlier, their understanding of green economy maybe is painting buildings over in green and planting a few trees.
I'm wearing green shirts.
Yeah, but there's the green. There's a thing called green economics. It's a whole area. You know this. Sustainable economics. The whole thing about endless growth, and growth is something infinite, is absurd,
Well,
right?
The question is, as I said, I was struck by that young lady
Yeah,
who said she
Yeah.
cannot protest.
yeah.
You do not want to protest for your own survival.
So if you protest against Ivla Griffith at UG, and the increase in fees and everything and all that, then you're protesting against the government. That's how they see
That's
it.
what it.
That's how
Now
they see it.
look what's happening in Hong Kong.
Yep. Look at, and that's going on for weeks. Yep.
Wow, look what's happening in Chile.
France, the yellow vest.
Abs-
In Chile, rebellion against neoliberal economics. But you
And
know,
Guyanese youth at the tertiary level
yeah,
are saying no, we're not going to protest.
we're not protest.
This is, madam, something is wrong.
And the whole thing about paying fees to UG is unconstitutional. You know this.
No, I don't.
You don't.
It's
Because when it was imposed, that the whole thing about certain things about and the pay thing and all of that, that was never amended. Nobody challenged it.
well, the Constitution does not say that you can't have fees. It says you will work towards it. In terms
But it-
in terms of the fundamental right, it speaks up to the secondary level. In terms of the preamble,
Yeah.
the
that's
what's
it.
called the
But-
non-justiciable clauses. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think a good lawyer
Yeah.
can argue,
Yeah.
because this government has shown the capacity for finding money whenever it wanted
Yes.
or whenever it wants.
Yeah.
So it will be hard pressed to put an argument
Yeah.
that we can't afford
Yeah. Yeah.
to pay for the university. In fact, it would make
Uh-huh.
absolute sense
Yes.
by allowing, saying we wouldn't charge fees, but you will have to stay to serve your country for 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
These people
Yeah.
are so short-sighted.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you see, that's what happened. I told a group of students at once that you just have y'all get together, a number of you get together, because they were complaining that they were told that they cannot write the exams because they didn't pay the fees.
Yes.
So I said, why not, instead of 1 or 2 of you, get together in a group and we'll get a lie and challenge this thing.
But that thing, I encountered a student over the weekend.
Let me put it this way. If I was at UG, if I was a student at UG, pursuing studies, and they said I couldn't write the exam because I didn't pay my fees, it would have been something different scenario. It would have been impossible. No chancellor or anybody could have stopped me from
cannot
writing
stop
that.
you,
Not me.
cannot stop
Over
the
my
course,
dead body.
yes,
I would have been there.
Well,
Where's Mr. Griffith? He came and he gone. He gone back to the United States where he spent more than 35 years. They don't stay in Guyana. They don't stay here.
But again, what people don't realize, a lot of those students are in fact on loans.
Yes.
So the government finances the loans anyway.
Which the whole thing, when you look at it, you know,
It doesn't matter whether you finance it by a subvention or by a loan.
Yep. Yeah.
You know,
You're right.
You talked about Burnham, you talked about Jagan. One of the very disappointing things I find in this era, when we have smartphones,
Yeah.
when we have powerful, this phone probably has more computing capacity
Yeah.
than the mission that went to the moon in 1969.
True.
And
True.
yet,
You can't argue against it. Yeah.
our ministers
Yes.
are some of the most incompetent that we've had since 1966. You mean a simple thing like that? They can't see?
Yeah.
What's wrong with us? This is the largest government this country has ever had.
Yes.
The largest
Yes.
government,
That's true.
the largest cabinet
Yes.
it has ever had.
Correct.
The largest presidency
Yeah.
it has ever had.
Yeah. Correct.
And it's heading to be one of the most inefficient
Yeah.
that we have ever had as well.
Mm-hmm.
How do you reconcile these things, chap?
You know, this is a crisis. What you're seeing is, Chris, I think that parties, a few have broken out of that, a few are headed. A lot of parties where you have this middle class leadership, right? You're seeing this problem. There's no vision. There's no vision.
I don't agree with you there. I believe that the middle class has successfully led most of the revolutions. Don't forget, Fidel Castro was no peasant.
Correct.
Che Guevara was no peasant. Mahatma Gandhi was no peasant.
Correct.
Nehru was no peasant. Nkrumah was no peasant.
No.
So,
No, when I said, hear what I'm saying.
okay.
I'm not knocking
not
you.
have-
I'm
yeah.
not knocking you because you came out of the middle class. Those names, those personalities that you just identify, Cabral would have referred to them as committing what he called class suicide. Castro might have emerged out of the middle class, like Gandhi and all of them, but at the end of the day, they were leaders who were committed to revolutionary transformation of the society. They were not about
That's correct. That's correct.
you know, it was different. But these here stuck in this liberal democratic tradition. They're not in that. These politicians are not in the category of those people who you mentioned. Those people fought. Those people who even those
This
people.
is a Prado government. That's
Yeah.
all they. You look how they and they strut out of the
Yeah,
thing.
but you know James, you know books Fanon and James and all them address the issue of the middle class political elites, right? They're not transformational. They can't count. I think what they're more interested in is accepting what they have and trying to manage it to see who could manage it better, which of the competing political elites are capable of managing better. But this whole thing about Utah, but transforming, dismantling, democratizing the economy, democratizing the states, diffusing power to the least common denominator, right? At the regional, the neighborhood. We got all these things, but NDCs and regional thing and all that. And it's a joke. It's a joke. Because you don't see, they're not the mechanisms. It doesn't work. It's not structured to really involve the people in decision making or for the people to participate. So the only participation people have in this country and many others is just when the time comes to vote, you vote.
You know, when you
And then you're forgotten
when you think
till the next elections.
of the persons in power now,
Yeah.
they seem to have professionalized politics.
That's right.
They become these.
It's a career.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's power and,
Yes.
and influence
Yeah.
and control.
Yeah, and you know that originally, there's a difference between politics and statecraft, and you know this, and that politics is meant to be. Everyone is meant to participate in the police. Everyone is meant. Every citizen
That's the
should
definition,
participate.
yeah.
That's right, in the political process, in the decision making. But what we do is at the ballot box, we give away our right to political elites, regardless of which political party they're in, to decide for us. And as we say in old VP, there should be no decisions about us without us.
Well, when we think
I
that-
campaign it.
I know
I campaign it.
you're going to have to start paying for coming on this program, but
I like that.
no, but when we think
Yeah.
of the people who were put up as candidates
Yeah.
in 57, 61, 64, I mean, George Bowman comes immediately to
Yes.
mind,
Yeah.
the shovel man.
Yeah. Shovelman, man.
Yeah. Now,
No.
all these people want doctorates.
Yes.
And they can't do it.
Yeah.
They can't.
Dr. Politics. You remember it's Eric Williams? Scott?
Yes,
The
Dr.
Politics.
Yes, yes. Who himself was a doctor, of
Yes.
course.
No, nothing is wrong. You're not knocking
Being
anybody.
learned,
I got a,
absolutely.
did a PhD, and so nothing is wrong with having a person doing doctorates and all that. But we have to educate our people. I think Burnham understood that, and Dr. Jagan understood that there's a fundamental difference between certification and education. Right? A person can be highly educated and not necessarily certified. And we have a lot of people who are certified and are not capable of applying what they know.
Careful your use of the word certified. That's
Yeah, I'm
often
using-
used in the psychiatric sense. So do be careful.
You know, Machiavelli once said, that's the only thing I like about what Machiavelli said. He said, the degree don't make you, you have to make the degree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Gerald Perreira,
Yeah.
thank you very much for this lively discussion of
Yeah,
Great
thank
Dog.
you, Chris. Always, I always thank you for giving a voice to the smaller political formations. You probably,
I
as
hope you
said-
will. I hope you will vindicate my confidence in these small parties.
All right.
Operators, thank you
Yeah,
and good
thank
night.
you.
See you next week.